Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz, and joining me from Sacramento, Aaron Schroeder. Aaron, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm glad we finally could be here to rank all the Love Island contestants and go over the new season.
Is there an Aaron on the show? Is there a Jonathan?
No,
No. All right,
no.
Austin. I feel like I saw an A
Yeah,
name.
yeah. There's an Austin. There's an
Is he a
and he's
tool?
he's great. He's
Oh,
been
okay.
great. Really happy that he picked Amaya. To really pursue someone that likes him. I think is important. He's stuck in a love triangle with Ace and Shelly for some time, but he finally broke out of that, and that's just we're here. That's what we're here to see.
So you may not have known this was ever a thing, but back in the Grantland days of ESPN, there was a Ringer After Dark show that was Juliet Littman, Andrew Sharp, and Zach Lowe, and they did like late night trashy dating shows. Um, and you would get their analysis on like Love Is Blind or
Mm.
The Bachelor, like Hawaii Island Getaway. And every now and then, if you had like the ESPN app and you just had your autoplay going, you would get this audio of them because it would just shift from whatever pod you were listening to this, and it was fascinating. It was never my jam, but always very funny to listen to them. Like the shows weren't my jam, but their podcast, I was like, maybe I should watch. Much love of Love Is Blind.
You should. It's a great show.
Well, we're not here to rank those. We are here to rank something. We're getting the top 500 built closer to building out the top 500. And we have built out the list to actually 428 now, well, I believe, because we put on a couple of modern guys and we hit a pause.
That's true.
During the season.
428.
I do just want to make mention there are a couple of current All-Stars that we're saving for like a this season recap and moving around of guys. So that list is not displayed on the screen, but if you are listening to an audio version, is Cade Cunningham, Darius Garland, D'Angelo Russell, Evan Mobley, Jalen Williams, LaMelo Ball, Lauri Markkanen, Paolo Banchero, Scotty Barnes, Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, Victor Wembanyama, and Zion Williamson. These are all guys that we feel either have not hit enough years to be on, or are at a higher caliber place that like putting them in right now doesn't really make sense. Like maybe some of these guys are a bit better than your Lou Williams, your Corey Maggettis, your Josh Smiths. So not quite the right time to bring them in.
I'm adding in those three guys to get out to 428, and I've done it. And
What do
I've
you
done
mean?
it.
What do you mean you're adding them in? I got them off of your list that you sent me.
No. Well, I have two different documents. I have when I added those guys, I put them on the spreadsheet, but the Google Doc is a separate thing. I didn't add that.
Okay.
So it's an interesting group. I think about Zion a lot. When I talked about my top 500, I had a tweet that did fairly well, and people wondered where he'd be. As a talent, where do you think Zion is?
Listen, where did we have like DeMarcus Cousins? Because that's probably a decent range.
Yeah.
Is that like 250-ish? Somewhere in there where it's like when Zion is healthy and when Zion is playing, the results speak for themselves. This is one of the best at rim finishers of guys like 6'8" and under and all of NBA history. Like he puts up Shaq-esque paint numbers in a much smaller frame. But he's never healthy. And as a result, his teams don't go anywhere. So, the things I look for are production, contributions to winning, and efficiency. And he's got the efficiency, but he doesn't have the production due to health, and he doesn't have the contributions of winning due to health. So it's I think like 250-ish is probably fine.
He almost feels like he can't be ranked at this point, even though he's made two All-Star teams, because it just has never culminated into anything. You know how many games a season he plays per season?
Is it under 40?
No.
What about if we count the whole year that he missed?
Well, considering that, I mean, he plays in. Actually, I don't think that is considered here. No, I don't. Not considering the entire year that he missed. When he at least checks into a game, it's 43. It's 43 games this season. I mean, do you know how many playoff games he's played in?
Has he? No, he's played in at
No,
least 2. No,
no,
yeah.
0. Well, play in. He's played in a couple play in games,
Okay.
but I think that goes back to why his teams don't go anywhere. They'd be good enough to make the playoffs every year if he was just healthy.
Yeah.
But instead, you have this entire New Orleans tenure heading into year 6, where they haven't made the playoffs. They probably won't next season either.
Yeah. So just given that, these guys we're gonna have to dig in deeper to and really figure that out. We're gonna try to get the current player re-ranking pod up sometime in the next month or so. But for now, Aaron, do you have the full top 400 in front of you? Top 428?
Yeah, I do.
Can you read the last 5 names just so that way people have a little bit of perspective of where we're starting at?
Absolutely. So we had Drazen Petrovic, Tony Kukoc, Zach LaVine, Josh Howard, and then Bob Kaufman. A really interesting group. With Petrovic, you get a couple elite seasons, an All-NBA team. Kukoc has the 3-peat in those contributions to winning. LaVine's been a 20-point per game scorer for all those years on pretty bad teams. Josh Howard was Dirk's lone all-star teammate for a while. And then Bob Kaufman, a nice 70s expansion team kind of guy. What caliber of player do you think we're looking for here? At this point, it's going to get to like, was this guy a solid starter for a while? Is kind of the level we get towards the back end of the 400s.
Yeah, if he was good, like all-star good, it's 2 to 3 seasons. If he was a contributing starter on like a high-end team, it's like 7 or 8 years. And if he was, a low-end starter, high-end bench player, we have like 15 years at this point. Just looking at some of the names coming up on the board, reading through the top 2 at each position, we've got Derek White and Kenny Anderson at point guard. At shooting guard, Jimmy Walker and Lou Williams. Small forward, Derek McKee and Corey Maggette. Power forward, Stu Johnson and Robert Horry. And at center, Connie Simmons and Mark Eaton. The people are still checking to see if Connie has any relation to Bill.
This is such a sickos activity, man. This is an activity for sickos. Like these guys are deep NBA cuts. It's funny because when I posted my top 500 and that tweet did well, and I texted Jack, the friend of the pod, and I was like, why do people like think this is so funny? Like, I don't understand. And he's like, it's because you talk about ranking 500 players. Like, I know that's normal to you, but it's not to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, like in that conversation, it was about DeAndre Ayton and DeJounte Murray. And I think people could look at that and be like, those guys aren't top 500. They're not even good, which for the most part, yeah, they're not. But they were kind of good for a little bit, and that's all we're kind of looking for.
They had a couple of seasons.
They had a couple of seasons. DeJounte Murray was awesome for that 1 year in San Antonio. Like a triple-double machine, terrifying length, elite off-ball defense, and hey, put him in. He made my top 500.
Yeah, I mean, it was a near triple-double. Was it like 26, 8, and 8? I've got the numbers in my notes here. And great defense. Like 80% of Russell Westbrook's offensive production and elite defense.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that should have been fucking amazing. And then Atlanta happened, and it just didn't work out. And now he's in New Orleans, and no one's ever healthy in New Orleans.
Yeah. It's so sad because he was such an elite defensive player and like really focused off ball and was rebounding and was hustling, and then traded all of that to be like a B- shot creator.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad.
Yeah. It's the inverse of like what happened with Derek White, where there was potential with White. There was this, like, I criticized the move for Boston trading for him because I was like, you guys are giving up. I was like, you guys are giving up a future first or swap when who knows if Tatum and Brown will still be around. Like, what is this team gonna look like? They were still having this for a guy who I'm like, what is he? He gonna be your backup point guard? You have Marcus Smart. And then Derek White just works his way into being the ultimate hustle and glue guy.
Mm,
And now we're doing this rankings, and I've got White ahead of him. You've got White ahead of him,
yeah,
ahead of Murray, that is. But with all of that said, 429. Let's stop wasting time. We're getting to
yeah.
450 on this pod. Who do you have?
Do you want to go one by one, or should we just cast a wide net and say these are the 5 guys that I have right now?
I've read the top two in each list. I think this
Okay.
far down, I feel like that's a good way to do this. I'm going to tell you this. I've
Hmm.
gotten incredibly squirrely going back through this list. So if we look at just the first names of the point guard, shooting guards, small forward, power forward, and center, I'm going to be like, yeah, I want the fifth guy from the small forward lineup up here. Just
Don't
just
don't do that to me. That's how this goes off the rails. Don't do that to me, because then the whole thing changes.
you
I
picked them all. Help me.
Okay. I'll mention the first guy that I had. I liked Connie Simmons. No way to start off. No better way to start off ranking your 429th best player than to talk about a 1940s and 50s player. It really grabs the audience's attention. What I like about Simmons is the Bullets trade for him, and then he averages 17 points a night, and they win the championship. And 17 points a night in 1948 is an insane amount. The average score of a Bullets game that year was 74 to 70. So he leads them in scoring. At this point, we are not touching anything close to best player on a title team. There's no one else in that range. And I feel like he still has that. Some things to consider pre-shot clock. The BAA is not as good.
Hmm.
And and basically the league is still segregated. So there's a lot of era factors going against saying that Connie Simmons is good at basketball. But for 429, I think I'm willing to put him in.
He also, from 51 to 54, or no, 52 to 54, is the starting center, most likely the starting center. A little bit hard to tell. They didn't track starts back then. They didn't track minutes played. But by all indications, he's either starting or playing heavy minutes for a Knicks team that makes 3 straight finals. So you have arguably best player for a finals team, and then 3 more finals appearances as a key contributor. I had him at 430. I'm not going to hate, just write him in at 429.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Who do you have next?
So my 429 was a guy that was really trying to figure out if he was going to be the best number one draft pick to be a bust, and that is Jimmy Walker. Jimmy Walker, of
Mm.
course, famously Jalen Rose's father, although did not raise him. They did not meet till adulthood. He was the number one pick of the 67 draft. And if you go back through it, some of the quotes and some of the things about him are just insane. Like Sam Jones saw him and paid his college tuition, was like, this is like going to be the next great player. He's described as the perfect player. He had comparisons. I'm going to read this quote. He had received favorable comparisons to Oscar Robertson. However, those comparisons were based on style points and a loose impression of ball handling artistry rather than hard numbers. But still,
Hmm.
there were people at times, and that was a college thing, that like thought that he could be this masterful guard. And what happens is he gets drafted to Detroit when they are not good. He makes 2 All-Star appearances, but the team is never really good around him. And then by the time the team gets good, it just surpasses him and kind of leaves him in the wake.
I didn't really love Walker's case. I'll be honest. I'll just put a
Okay.
roadblock up immediately. Just thinking about guys of the similar era, I kind of preferred Cazzie Russell, the first overall pick in the next draft, and then
Ooh.
Kenny Sears, which is a bit earlier, but still.
See, I'm going to let you know that I dropped Kenny Sears down hella far.
You don't
Um,
like Sears?
I did not like Sears when I came back to this. It's after however many months. I did like Cazzie a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, but there's another small forward that moved up my board dramatically. And I think you're going to really like it when we get to him.
Interesting. I'll make my Cazzie Russell case just for a second, because I had him, I
Wait.
guess, sooner.
Is he your 430?
No, he's not.
Then let's do your 430.
I had James
In
Edwards.
Okay, I had him at 431, and
Okay.
so I don't dislike it at all.
Buddha, a rare post-merger Pacer. The Pacer, I mean, all the ABA teams that survived and went to the NBA got just gutted. And he got drafted to them, I think, in 78.
I do have his peak listed here at 78
You know,
or 78
he
to
gets traded
86.
from
Yeah.
LA as a rookie to it. I mean, to play, I couldn't tell you a thing that's going on in late 70s, early 80s Indiana, honestly. And I've done a lot of basketball research given the project we're doing. But the longevity is just astounding, especially at 7'1", 250 to play in 1,200 games, to play 19 years, to win titles, not just the bad boy Pistons, but also the 96 Bulls. Really impressive stuff.
Now, I do think that we make a little bit too big of a deal about his longevity. Like, it's really good for this spot on the list. But for anybody wondering why it's not higher, that 1,168 games is 64th in NBA history.
Yeah.
Minutes wise, he's 221st in minutes played. So, like, they didn't even track minutes for a good chunk of the earlier times. So, like, he played in games, but he wasn't playing a lot. And a lot of those early years, like, it takes him a while to kind of find his footing. Those Lakers years, those Pacers years, he's not playing a ton of games. It's not like injuries as much as just he hasn't quite developed yet. Kind of a latecomer into being really good. One of the big knocks about him was that he rebounds like a guard, and that he brings a lot of mass with him. Him and Duckworth both, who we'll get to. They're bigger guys. They're not great rebounders, but they are low block merchants. And having rewatched the 90s, these finals where those two guys match up against each other, you know, for teams that have Drexler and Isaiah Thomas, they spend good parts of the early games in several of these finals games being like, okay, we have to establish the low post game. Let's get the ball to James Edward. Let's get the ball to Duckworth. And it wasn't like we have to get it down low because that's the way basketball is played. It's no, these guys are actually capable scoring big men. And Edwards comes up huge in, what was it? Game 2 of the 90s, his finals, dropping 26 points in what would be an overtime victory for Detroit.
He averaged 14 a night in the 90 finals. He's playing. I mean, he's starting throughout that entire playoff run. If my research is correct, he has the most points out of anyone to never get a single accolade of any kind.
Huh. I like it.
All right, lock him in.
Can I assume then that for 432, we're just going to go straight up the board to Mark Eaton?
Yes, although I think you might be jumping one name ahead. We have 429 Connie Simmons, 430 Edwards, and then 431.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mark Eaton's someone that we moved up after the ranking. Yeah, I think we are point per game merchants at times, and I think you could even argue Eaton should be higher. But I'll leave it alone for now. He just isn't such an insane defensive player, and the Jazz are very good defensively in these years. I think we look at it as kind of like they got so much more successful after they dumped him off, because having someone who is so limited offensively kind of put a ceiling on what they were up to. But at least for what he was good at, when he won Defensive Player of the Year, averaging 5.6 blocks per game, an NBA record, they were the top defense. So clearly what he is doing is effective. It is so interesting. The Jazz going from Frank Layden was kind of a goofball, like just kind of a jokester on the sidelines, and to go from him to like basically the evil empire Jerry Sloan, like the most serious person ever to coach a basketball game for like 25 years. It's just a really interesting change in culture in Utah.
Yeah. You touched on it about them being number one when he wins Depoy, but starting when he first gets to Utah, in 85 they're first in defensive rating, in 86 they're third, in 87 they're first, in 88 they're first, and in 89 they are first in defensive rating. Like, I don't entirely want to rehash arguments I've had about why Hakeem didn't win defensive rating or Depoy for years, because it gets a little tiresome. But like, Eaton was a really good defensive player, or a really good shot blocker, I should say. He struggled at every other aspect other than protecting the rim because he was slow. But if you just camp him near the basket, you get the number one defense. I just sometimes basketball is not more complicated than that.
Do you
Big man
want to move
block
him higher
shots.
because of this?
No, not at all.
All right.
I think when
Why
you
is he not higher? Give me the negatives on someone who has such impressive defensive stats.
they don't win because he's not good enough at offense. He's 7'4" and has the hands of a small baby. Like he
True,
actually probably
true.
he actually probably has great hands. For those who don't know, Mark Eaton was never supposed to be a basketball player. I mean, he's 7'4". He of course should have been a basketball player, but he goes to like after high school, he just starts working in a mechanic shop until someone connected to I want to say UCLA sees him and is like, "Hey, you're really tall. Have you gone to college? Like, go to college." And he like goes to college for a couple of years, but doesn't go to the NBA till he's 27 because of this interim between high school and college, where he's working in a mechanic shop. So I'm I'm picturing he probably does have decent hands if he's working in a mechanic shop.
That's true.
But
Strong hands.
but when you look at things from the Jazz and they talk about Ian, uh, the common refrain is like, what are his strengths? Shot blocking. What are his weaknesses? Everything else.
Well, I'll give you the more simple argument. It's because he averages 6 points per game on 46% shooting, and he's
Everything
7'4".
else.
Another good way to look at it, his offensive box plus minus is negative 3.1, which is hilariously low. His defensive box plus minus is 2.9, which is hilariously high, but the end result is basically breaking even.
Yeah. It's that's why he's not higher. All right. We're now at the point on my board where I would like to circle back to Jimmy Walker of being a multi-time high scorer or consistently good player. And if you're not interested in Walker, then might I suggest the guy who is 433 on my board to move up to 432? This is where I told you I was going to get squirrely. Tom Satch Sanders.
You know I do love Tom Sanders. Yeah,
Do you
I'm
want to
willing
hear?
to do that.
Do you want to hear the 3 quotes that I got for Tom Satch Sanders?
Please.
You're going to love all of these. We'll start off with Jack Twyman. Jack Twyman. To forwards, Sanders was a nightmare. He covered you like a blanket. I have never faced a defender who played the defense since the way Sanders did.
That's a good one.
Then we'll go to Fred Shaws, who was the Lakers coach. The Celtics had 3 of the greatest defenders who ever lived: Casey Jones, Satch Sanders, and Bill Russell. And he goes and describes what Casey does, what Bill does. When he gets to Satch, he says, "Then there was Satch with those long arms smothering Elgin Baylor. Our eyes would lift up whenever Heinsohn would come in for Sanders. Heinsohn could shoot, but we were grateful to get Sanders out of the game."
Very nice.
Take that, your Heinsohn loving ass.
I can't believe that. Anyways, we'll leave that.
Elgin Baylor.
Meet Tom Heinsohn.
Elgin Baylor. When I think of Boston's defense, I think of Satch Sanders. He was my size, 6'6", because he was aggressive but not dirty. He lived to play defense. He was totally unselfish and the toughest player I ever went against.
That sounds pretty good. That sounds like good stuff. There's so much going on in the Celtics dynasty, but how do you have the best defense of all time every season, or the best defense in the league every season? Often the best defense of all time, having these insane pieces and these ridiculous defenders from 60 to 66. He's playing 30 minutes a night in the playoffs, so he's out there. And I can't speculate on how many all defensive teams he would have gotten, but
yeah, and he doesn't play as much.
He got the 1 in 69, and then his career kind of falls off.
Yeah, he doesn't play as much during the regular season, like 61 to 73. He never averages 30 minutes per game in the season, which I think is why we have him a little bit lower. But also, you didn't need that level of defense on a night in, night out basis, but you needed it in the playoffs. And just that quote from Baylor, I think really kind of solidifies and makes me wonder if we should move him up. You're on mute.
I'm moving Sanders up on the small forwards list. I'm making these additions in real time.
Okay. All right. So then we've got 433. Who are you thinking if you're not loving Jimmy Walker, or do you? I mean, is Cazzie the next guy on your board, or do you have someone else?
I actually didn't have Cazzie for a bit. Well, I think the thing was,
I also
Cazzie
don't have
was
Cazzie for a bit.
well because we still had McKee, Maggette, and Sears on the small forwards list, and so being a traditionalist, I went by that. Let me take a look real quick. Where are you?
Well, who's next on your list?
1 second.
I'm assuming it was not Satch Sanders.
I feel like our where do you have 1 second? I think someone's missing.
While you're looking for that, I'm going to do a little promo for the book Tall Tales by Terry Pluto. That's where I got all three of those last Satch Sanders quotes. Lots of great information about the early NBA, kind of the pre-70s time. But if you want more from Terry Pluto and potentially more of the 70s era, go to your local library and check out Loose Balls, an oral history of the ABA.
Very nice. So I had Dick Garmaker by this point, the top shooting guard. I don't see him on your list.
Did I just completely skip over Dick?
I think he's not ranked on our 428, and he's not there. I didn't necessarily love his career. He makes an All-NBA team in 57, but it's kind of all-star. He's the all-star representing the Lakers, and they're really bad after Mike.
I feel like we took him off in a post text chain, although the 4 all-star appearances,
that was the top shooting guard, and I still had and it looks like you moved Walker above Lou Williams at least, because that's where he was.
I did not. Aaron, do you think I have free time?
No, I'm saying like I don't really remember Walker being above Williams, and I haven't had that.
I'm saying I haven't had time to touch these rankings. They've been like this, except for in the past few days when you sent me over your lists of corrections.
You've had a history of inconsistent record keeping, is all I'll say.
I write the records down when we record them, and then are untouched.
I feel like you're missing an entire player, and you're telling me that these are all 100% accurate. You left
100%.
Dick Garmaker out to die, and you're telling me that you have it perfect. Okay, I really
100%.
quickly, I liked Cazzie Russell. In 1972, he gets kind of a lone MVP vote, but it's because the Warriors win 51 games, and he is the lone all-star on that team. It's him and Jeff Mullins and Thurman. They're all kind of 20 points per game. To get to 51 wins, something that Jimmy Walker never really gets close to, and to get the all-star nod in the same era, I kind of felt like Russell was better. I also like that he gets the 1970 championship. He's a part of some pretty good Knicks teams.
Yeah, I think he's the Kuminga part of some pretty good Knicks teams, though.
Yeah, I can see that.
His whole time in New York, he's kind of railing against the team ball, and it's not until he gets demoted from the starting lineup that they really take off. Because he was a bit younger. He wanted to be the A star, and at 24, just I forget if it's 68 or 69, I didn't write it down. He was averaging 18 points per game, and then they trade, and he falls out of the rotation. By the time we get to the playoffs, he's like at a minutes low for the past several years, and so he kind of gets worked out of the rotation, then gets traded 2 years afterwards, and that's when he has his like big all-star season of 21 points per game. And I kind of look at him like, you could have been a Satch Sanders, you could have been a guy who really contributed to winning, but then you decided to chase numbers. And if we're going to go with the guy that decided to chase numbers, I'd rather have someone that did it for longer at like a higher level, like a Jimmy Walker. I do have him just a little bit down, so I'm not going to fight too much, which we've got other battles that I will fight you tooth and nail on. But again, you are muted.
God damn it. Where is Dick Garmaker going? You have to add him back into the list.
You tell me where you want Dick.
He should be the top shooting guard. That's where he was.
Okay, but all right. We'll just I can't quite shift everything right now.
Yeah, do some highlighting, my boy.
Well, I've got some hidden cells in here. Insert cells and shift down. I was just worried that was going to unhide something. Dick Garmaker. Is there anyone else that I'm missing in between here?
I don't think so. But we will find out the hardest way.
Okay. Who is your nomination for 433?
Let's put in Garmaker. He's 10th in points per game in 1957. That's pretty cool.
Also a fuller time All-Star. Although you are right, the team was not very good. He is kind of the best Laker, or not even the best Laker, but he's a good Laker post Mikan, and as that the team starts to fade.
All right, let's do Walker.
Love it.
Let's do Walker. And do you really think Walker should be this high?
I do.
Like in your heart of hearts? Okay. Can we do Russell and Cazzie back to back?
Sorry, who in Cazzie back to back?
We'll do Walker and then Cazzie Russell at 435.
Okay, I thought you said Ruckle and Cazzie, and I was like,
Ruckle.
Who the fuck is Ruckle? Like, that's not a bad nickname. But
so,
okay, then
I'll edit all this shit after. God damn it.
Listen, man, I trust you to make competent lists and be able to talk about them.
All right. Well, I'll adjust this stuff when we get there. Okay. All right. So,
all right. I'm just going to read the top guys on the boards.
Yeah.
Point guards, again, we still have Derek White and Kenny Anderson. Shooting guards, we have Lou Williams and Fast Eddie Johnson, the one drafted in 78 and is a child sex predator. Small. It's just no great way to say that. Small forwards, we have Derek McKee, Corey Maggette. Power forwards, we have Stu Johnson, Robert Horry, and centers, we have Kristaps Porzingis and Kevin Duckworth.
You know, it's funny. Every time I do these rankings, I usually hang out with my little brother. He's just a couple years younger than me, and we'll go through the players, and he's like, "We keep talking about this, like this rapey Eddie Johnson. Like, why do we keep talking about this player? This is terrible. Like, just because we've always been in this range for so many months." And he's like, "I'm really tired of hearing about like how there is another Eddie Johnson who's a really nice guy, and that guy's life was kind of like ruined for a little bit because another guy named Eddie Johnson did some really terrible stuff." But we try to rank guys based on basketball ability, which is what we're here for. But I liked Lou Williams.
Okay.
I like Lou Williams. Second round pick in 05, comes in, is just 19 years old in 2006, plays forever, plays 17 seasons, 1,100 games, 3-time Sixth Man of the Year winner, which is quite impressive. He's really good for those Clippers teams. This is something about someone with such a slender frame, but he drew so many fouls. He took 4 free throws per game. Someone to get like 5-6 free throws a night and hit 85% of them, close to 90% in some years, while being a pretty good shooter. Those Clippers teams were great stories, and Lou Williams is probably the best player on that team.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit understating it. This man shouldn't have 3 Sixth Man of the Year awards because he shouldn't have been the sixth man on some of those teams.
Good point.
Like 2015, he gets Sixth Man of the Year for the Toronto Raptors. He's averaging 15.5 points. The Raptors are a 50-win team. They're 49-33, basically. And he's third in scoring behind Lowry and DeRozan. It's like, cool. That's your starting point guard. Your starting shooting guard. Makes sense. That's a good sixth man. 2018, he leads the Clippers in scoring. The Clippers trade away Blake Griffin mid-year. He also averaged 22.6 points per game, but he plays just 33 games. So I'm giving the nod to Lou Williams. Your leading scorers coming off the bench, and the team goes 42-40. 2019, he's second in scoring with 20 points per game on a 48-win Clippers teams. So like all of these teams are above 500 and pretty decent. But yeah, no, I like the call here. Or I had him a few spots lower, but I think this is a good selection.
Is your next guy also Derek McKee?
My next guy is Derek McKee. Actually, Derek McKee was a little bit above him.
Heavy D.
Rankings. Heavy D. What a nickname.
Like, 142 playoff games.
So he's got multiple 50 playoff 3-year stints, which I don't know why that just kind of meant something to me. But like to have
50
50
playoff games in 3
playoffs,
years.
yeah, because that
Okay.
means you're making the conference finals all 3 of those years, or the finals in one. Like to hit 50 games, you have to play a lot of playoff games in 3 years. And the first time he does it, it's 93 to 95. They've one run with Seattle, two with Indiana. He's averaging 35 minutes a game. It's just 11 points, 5 boards, and 4 assists. But he's also a really high level defensive player. It was the trade, the Pacers sending out Chuck Perkins, bringing in Derek McKee, that like promotes Reggie's offense and gives them enough defensive strength to like cover Reggie's lapses on that end and really kind of pair him up. That makes Indiana special in the last half of the 90s.
He's another piece of an underrated Pacers core where people recognize Reggie Miller, but don't see the great talent around him. They always had a really good passing point guard and really good rebounding forwards. And here's a great defensive player to cover on that. I mean, it's 6'10 at the small forward position. Really good stuff. And I love the longevity too. 15 years, almost 1,000 games. In 1995, he was sixth in DPOY, and he made 2 all defensive teams in 95 and 96.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to talk more to those Pacers, Reggie, Mark Jackson, Rick Smits have already been ranked. Derek McKee is now coming in and hot here. Antonio Davis, we have over at 92 on the power forwards list.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little bit further down. And the podcast started off pretty hot with centers. I will imagine we will burn through a fair amount more centers. And Dale Davis, who's hanging out a little bit. Dale Davis is going to make this list too. So you're talking about 6 top 500 all-time guys on that squad.
The Davis brothers.
Just
my next guy was another small forward. I put in Corey Maggette. It's bad porn. Corey Maggette. There's a lot of penetrating and scoring, but do you really like what you're seeing?
You know, sorry, I just gotta get over the bad porn nickname, which is it on Basketball Reference? Or did Basketball
No,
Reference
it's not on
one?
Basketball Reference. It should be. It should be.
It's one of the best, worst nicknames of all time, so it should be there, but I get why it's not there. The crazy thing when I was looking back on Corey Maggette is he was actually efficient. The true shooting added is over 1,000. Like, that is pretty elite volume and efficiency for a guy who we talk about like inefficient penetration, or not inefficient, but like not game-changing penetration. Guys who get in the lane, but you know, I don't know.
Yeah, tell me more about game-changing penetration.
I was really hoping I had like a USC Trojan something. I could be like, speaking of game, but I don't actually own any college swag other than.
Something to note about Maggette is, Nate, how do you draw 7 free throws a game? How do you lead the league in free throws made in 04? Get into the rim. Just recklessly get into the rim. How many times does Corey Maggette play 80 games in a season?
I don't know.
0. And his career was done by 33 because he was just like bowling ball into the lane over and over and over again. It's not great on your knees. It's not great on your body. I think it's a part of why he was so brittle. But hey, 2003 to 2010, we're looking at 20 points a night on really good efficiency, driven by a ridiculous free throw rate. And he was a very good free throw shooter as well.
Only makes the playoffs one time in that 8-year span. It's the 2006 year where he plays just 32 games in the regular season. Could not be the bus driver, but had his career bounced some different ways, maybe he could have been a fairly memorable role player or bench scorer in the same way Lou Williams was.
Yeah, I could see that. Per 36 minutes in the 06 playoffs, he's averaging 23 and 10. He was putting in numbers in a very, very short amount of time.
Putting up work. Can I make the case for Kristaps Porzingis here?
You really think, man, do you think that Porzingis is better than Derek White?
So I think White will surpass Porzingis, but if we're looking at the body of work, Porzingis has this 6 seasons averaging over 20 points per game, or from 18 to 25. He misses all of 2019, but that stretch, it's 21 points per game, 8 rebounds, block and a half, or 1.8 blocks. Yeah, a lot of those years he's not healthy. He does get the one All-Star appearance. That's due to health. But I think when they're healthy, Porzingis has definitely shown that he's better than Derek White.
Yeah.
And I think he's just been in the spotlight a lot longer. So I would go Porzingis just a hair above White. I actually, when I did the rankings on the sides over here, Porzingis was my 436 and White is my 442. So 6 spots between them. And you've already pulled up Cazzie and Lou Williams. So I got 4 guys in between them in my rankings right now.
Yeah, let's do Porzingis. The All-Star appearance kind of stings. I mean, he made that in part because the Knicks were kind of, if a Knick player is good, he's making the All-Star team, especially around 2030, or around like the mid 2010s when it was like really exciting. The Knicks might be good again. I guess the late 2010s, looking at it now, but to not finish that season, to kind of have a weird tenure in Dallas, he was really good with Washington, and he was so good for Boston. It really sucks that he was kind of just a cheerleader come playoff time during their
Yeah.
championship run. He was huge in moments, like when he played in the finals. I remember he started one of those games just on fire, but he's just not out there very much. But I think I agree. If they were healthy, it would be without a question Kristaps Porzingis, and I'll take him for now.
I do think if Porzingis was healthy this year, we have a different story. I think his health is a much more determinant factor of what than Derek White's health. All right. Then just scrolling down my board, my next guy up is Kevin Duckworth. Do you have anyone that you like more than Ducky?
No, I think Duckworth is good. I think Duckworth is right here.
And Duckworth is basically the same guy as James Edwards with a little bit less championships. He gets the 2 All-Star appearances, but if you kind of go year by year, a little bit of that's the differences in the conferences where guys were pooled. It's really hard to make All-Star appearances though in the 80s and 90s as a center. Just if you are not Shaq, Alonzo. I don't know why Alonzo Mourning's like that. Shaq, Hakeem, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo. Like Duckworth had a little bit easier time being in the West than
I love the Target ads on Basketball Reference that cover my entire fucking screen. Thanks, guys. All right. Duckworth just kind of thread the needle between that. His All-Star appearances are 89 and 91, like before most of the guys you mentioned, but like after Moses and Kareem.
Yeah.
In those years, though, 16 and 8, 16 and 7, 30 minutes a night on really good teams.
I mean, it's the starting center on 2 finals teams and a Western Conference Finals from 90 to 92. I did note some playoff inconsistencies in there. The 90s finals, he's 30 minutes. It's a night, 15 and a half points, 5.5 boards. In the Western Conference Finals, the Blazers go up 2-0, and then games 3 through 6, he's 27 minutes night, 7 points, 7 boards on 27% field goal shooting. That's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But like in 92, he has a really good series or really good final couple of games to end Utah, and then kind of mixed bag against Chicago. Like there's a reason why he's here. It's inconsistent play, but there is a lot to celebrate. And Terry Porter, his teammate, just says he's a big, fun-loving teddy bear. At times it'd be frustrating because he didn't have that mean streak, but he was just a great guy, and he's loved by the team.
Great guy, really soft touch, nice jumpers, really fat all the time. Starting to be like really out of shape for most of his career. Kind of a low motor, but at 7'1", 275, man. All right, put him in.
Put him in. Who you got next?
Kenny Sears has been with me for a while. I know you don't care about rules or anything that we're doing and just dropped him unlawfully, but he gets MVP votes in 4 different seasons. I don't know if we've talked about a player that's gotten any MVP votes at this point. He was 8th in 1959, led the league in field goal percentage twice. 9th in points per game, 58, 7th in 59. What do you think? What did you not like about him? That the team sucks?
The team sucks. And I think it's a little bit of his own just kind of resignation. And the game passed me up, he told Sports Illustrated. It became very physical, a lot of pushing and shoving, and I didn't weigh much. Playing a team like Boston, who we played a dozen times, we just couldn't compete then. And then when Chamberlain came in the league, we were nowhere. And it's just he
That's
hits
kind
his
of your fault,
shots.
though.
Yeah. Yeah.
They go 40 and 32 in 1959. So you could say that, but like they're winning games. I mean, he's so efficient. Like he has the highest true shooting in the entire NBA during that season. I mean, if anything, I feel like we've been cruel to him.
He's plus 1,000 in the true shooting added. I was looking at him and I was looking at Terry Dissinger, who Dissinger plays from 63 to 73 as a 3-time All-Star. Both guys have absences in their careers. I want to say they're both military service. I didn't write down Kenny's. Was Kenny's military service?
It says other pro league.
Other pro league, so washes out of the NBA. And when they both come back, neither of them are as good.
I think about this though. When they come back, their teams are different. Their team, one, they just served in the military, but two, their teams are structured much differently.
Well, like Terry Dissinger served in the military. Kenny Sears played in another pro league.
That's true.
Was that 1962 that he played in the other pro league, or what year was that?
Yeah, it's 62. I think it's like an ABL thing. Like he joins. There's like a second league going on.
I'm gonna guess it was the Professional Basketball League. If it's 62, there was this renegade league that was like the Black League, and it like predecessed this the ABA, and they invented the 3-point line, and it was like a Midwest. It was a heavily African American league. They had an African American owner. Super cool. I want to learn more about this league, but that kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm not going to fight you a ton on this, just given the calibers, but I think we've got better guys. Is left.
I don't think we do. I'm putting him in.
Okay.
441.
441. All right. Then I want to get two guys off the board. This is my one for you, two for me deal.
Okay. So you really quickly, you really feel like Cazzie Russell and who is the other guy? The Jimmy Walker at the same position come along later in a more diluted league, play on basically bad teams as well, and don't get the All-Star appearances or the MVP votes or lead league in field goal percentage, and you prefer them.
Yeah.
How come?
I think they're better. You look back and you read about the guys, and it's like Kenny Sears is bad on he's on a bad team that just no one cares about. Like his scoring just doesn't.
They're not that bad. Come on, give me a break.
It's not good.
They're 500. They're above 500.
It's not good.
They're 36 and 36, 35 and 37, 40 and 32. This isn't like these. I mean, we just ran Corey Maggette.
Fair.
I'm moving him up.
All right, we're gonna leave him here at 441.
No, he's above. He's better than Corey Maggette.
Better than Corey Maggette. Better than Duckworth.
Yes.
Whoa, wait. Corey Maggette did this for 10 years. He averaged 20 points per game for 10 years.
On the worst teams imaginable.
Okay. Kenny Sears had, was it 3-4 good years before he leaves to go play in the other pro league?
5.
Let's just talk about like brevity here. Corey Maggette does double the time.
Yeah.
441 is good for Sears.
All right, fine. Okay. All right. I disagree.
All right. Do you want to nominate 442 or do you want me to nominate 442?
I had Derek White.
Good.
Where'd you have Derek White?
Ironically, on my board was 442. I do still have 440, and I don't like 441, so I was hoping that you would nominate him at some point. And I just personally decided I would never bring him up.
Okay. Is that our shooting guard?
Ironically, no, that's my 440.
So who's worse than the child rapist?
The
Jesus
guy that
Christ.
doesn't play defense.
Okay. All right.
Uh, um, so my one thought with Derek White at this point is: would you rather have Derek White or Robert Ory, who I have just a little bit below him because of
Robert,
the?
I'd rather have Ori.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Ory just, and honestly, would you rather have? I don't want to. We go through this all day. Would you rather have Ori or Duckworth or Ori or this guy? But like Ori, 7 titles, 39-9 in the playoffs, and he's never the bus driver. But 20 playoff series where he's playing over 30 minutes per game. That is
Yeah.
contributions. That
Yeah.
is I wrote down these numbers when we did this last year, so it's not been updated for this year's playoffs, but it's top 80 in playoff points, top 40 in playoff rebounds, top 20 in playoff blocks, top 20 in playoff steals.
Yeah.
That's
He's like
Mr.
the best seventh man in league history that magically became the most important fourth man come playoff time.
Yeah. I was for our power forwards list or a small forwards list, I was doing some more research on Cedric Ceballos, and the Lakers have Ceballos. He's an all-star, and the next year he's 20 points per game. He leads there in playoff scoring, and they basically trade him straight up for Robert Ory. There's another guy on each team, but they're inconsequential guys. And they do this in part to free up some salaries, so that way they make the Shaq push, but also just like Cedric is a bad top player, and we'd rather go for Ori and try to attract a star to like fit in the pieces around him. So Ori at 442, Derek White 443.
That sounds great. Just to comment on Sabalas really quickly. I did a lot of research on the year Magic came back for my write-up months and months and months ago, probably years ago at this point, and just kind of the temperature at the time, very lukewarm. The Lakers thought they were good. They liked the team they had. Here's old man Magic kind of stepping on our toes. And Sabalas is one of the guys that was most outspoken about like not super happy. He's like, I'll get mine. Magic can get his. And at first reading that, I was like, I get this. I understand. You were a good team. All of a sudden, here's like this sideshow. And now I think about it, and it's like you couldn't get along with Magic Johnson. You didn't want to play you didn't love playing with Magic Johnson. All right, man. Like, suit yourself.
I will say, Magic Johnson, historically, one of the easiest guys to get along with. However, there are some things about that season and reading some stuff about the mid 90s Lakers where Magic was just kind of like, fuck all you guys. Like there was supposedly a practice where he brought in Byron Scott Scott was still on the team, but he brought in like AC Green, he brought in other past Lakers and like just we're gonna scrimmage my 5 versus like the best 5 of the Lakers because I dislike you guys so much. So the feelings were mutual.
Certainly. Of course, Nick Van Exel being the leader in minutes per game on that team doesn't help the team chemistry either. That team is good though. They win 53 games, like despite kind of the turmoil. Like it was a good move. They go from 11th in offensive rating to 4th because Magic is really good. Okay, enough about that. Derek White. We're ranking Derek White, the super utility man, the most versatile man in the world. Is he actually better than your favorite all-star? Probably. Over the last 3 playoff runs, he's averaging 16 points, 4 boards, 3 assists. He's elite defensively. He takes almost 8 threes per game and hits 41% of them. And even if you miss your shot, sometimes he's right underneath the basket to put them in. That game-winning put-back layup alley-oop thing against Miami, one of the best plays in playoff history.
Now, I do think that there's a little bit of like chicken or egg with Derek White, not referencing his head and the shavedness of it. He's a great look. Every man should shave their head at some point. But White, his top 15 games by points scored are 12 double-digit wins for his team and 3 losses in the playoffs. It's like playoff games. If he's cooking, either his team is really cooking, or his team is really cooking, and therefore he is cooking. And it's like a little bit of which is it? Which is he the driver? Or is he the recipient? And I think there's a little bit of each because if you think about the way they play, if Tatum drives and kicks and White hits it, that's Celtics offense. That's beautiful ball. If Tatum drives and doesn't kick, what do you want White to do? He's standing there in the corner. Like,
I mean, offensively, there's so much value he's adding, though. There's just so much value. And
sure.
genuinely, I don't think we'll ever truly understand what Boston does. Who is responsible for any of this? Is Jaylen Brown even good? Is Tatum even good? Are any of these players good? Or are they all just
No,
kind
it's
of
all
good
Al
together?
Horford.
It's all Al Horford, and that's kind of what I was getting at. It's actually all Al Horford. We just ran Kristaps Porzingis, and he was barely playing the year they won the title. At least come playoff time, dealing with those injuries, and so it's so hard to relegate like the responsibilities and who is what. But I know Derek White's value when I see them. Would you rather, if you were drafting a team, would you rather have Trae Young or Derek White?
Trae Young.
All right.
I mean, if we're talking
though.
Listen, we're talking salaries the same, or like we just line up 2K, like we're picking guys.
Yeah.
I will pick Trae Young before I pick Derek White.
I think you're making a mistake. I understand why Trae Young would be a better player.
No.
But I just think like by taking someone like White, you can really unlock so much of a higher ceiling in what team you're kind of building. And Trae Young just puts a big hard cap on what you're doing. But, just a thought.
I mean, the thought makes sense. Is White, you have a perfect role player. And I was talking to my wife about this. And I was saying that, like, at this range, you have flawed, like, best men. You have really flawed second or best, or like, guys that you can't build around because they're too flawed, but they're really talented. Flawed, super talented guys. Or you have great guys of a lower tier, like the guys that get the most out of their mileage. And it's like, do I want to celebrate the guys that get the most out of their mileage, like a Derek White, like a Robert Horry, or do I want to celebrate a guy like Corey Maggette, who, yeah.
Apparently you do, given that you put Corey Maggette over Kenny Sears. Just preposterous. You're talking to your wife about this stuff? She's just like, wow.
Listen, my wife knows that my autism sometimes makes me just have to talk about things.
Yeah.
And I give her so much credit for listening and trying to understand. Like, we have a 10-month-old kid right now. And so we spend a lot of time with small children. And there are some times where small children will run up to you and just babble. And like, as an adult, you should listen to them and give them your attention and like nod. But sometimes they're just saying utter nonsense. And I'm 90% sure that's what my wife does to me. She just treats me like a toddler that's babbling. And she's like, yeah, that's really cool, honey. Oh, that makes
You ranked
sense.
him where? Wow. He pats your bald head. Like, that's really nice.
She's so sweet. I love her dearly. Yeah. Okay, so we got 443. We need 7 more guys to finish out this pod. And I don't really know where to go. Who do you like next?
I had Kenny Anderson, the next point guard. 14 years, 858 games, second in assists per game in 94, makes the All-Star team. Averages 6 assists per game for his career, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 assists. Helps the Nets make the playoffs twice. You know how hard that is? You know how tough that is to get the Nets to the playoffs in the 90s? They had nothing going on.
I mean, they were in Brooklyn. Not Brooklyn. They were in New Jersey. That's
Jersey.
Even more complicated as being
Chuck Daly and Derek Coleman.
Yeah. I wasn't really sure what to do with Kenny Anderson because he's got this longevity thing. On his 5-year peak, he's averaging 17 points and 8.5 assists. And when you read about him, they're like, he's a classic point guard, true distribution man who just could also score and had like a knack for scoring. And like, well, he's got a negative 600 true shooting added. The assists really drop off in some of the later years. So it's like, is he a scoring guard? Like I just kind of looked at him and was like, he's better than Dennis Schroeder, but is he that much better than Dennis Schroeder? Or like, I don't know. It started to feel like I was truly questioning why we were doing this, why we were wasting our time with guys like Kenny Anderson. But
I'll offer a nomination maybe to go ahead of him in the next point guard. Actually, I think you have this. I see you have Kevin Porter.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Did you
Fred
move up?
Scolari, though.
Okay. I like
Fat
Fred Scolari
Freddy.
more. The chonky boy. Hey, blubber, butterball.
Yeah. A solid 5'10", 180. Which isn't that, which, like, I'm 5'9", 200. And I don't have the nickname Butterball. Am I Butterball? What's going on here?
I would be crushed if I had the nickname Butterball. Well, at roughly that same height and weight. But I don't know. They're coming off the military. He is one of the Capitals players. The Capitals, those were kind of built off of Red Auerbach's military connections. So while I don't know his service record, I gotta imagine this is ex-military man in here. But they describe him as having fleshy hips, a bulging stomach, spindly legs, soft thigh muscles. Still, he was quick and strong. And his peers touted him as the best all-around guard in the BAA. Yeah, let's do that.
We could consider moving him up a little bit. 2 all BA selections. He's top 20 in points per game 5 times, top 10 in assists per game twice. The other thing is he makes the first 2 All-Star teams, averaging pretty similar numbers to the years prior. I think it's reasonable that he would have made a lot more.
I hate to say this,
He also
but
is
like,
blind in one eye, deaf in one ear. Sometimes I think about, like, is this, is this a weak era? You know, oh yeah, I want to respect our elders and the pioneers of this game, and then it's like, yeah, George Mikan's top competition was Butterball, and he literally has no depth perception.
I was about to say, did we mess up this entire pod? We've got Connie Simmons at 429. We've got Fred here at 444. Maybe we just need to recognize that the difference between 429 and what will be 500 is Occam's razor thin. It's just like, you know, but I like him for 444. I'm fine with Kenny Anderson at 445. That puts me back on the board for a nomination, and I really don't like a lot of the other guys that we have around here. How would you feel about going for? I got 3 names. None of them are up next. So getting squirrely on you.
Okay,
But tell me which of these names you like. Johnny Green, Nat Clifton, or Bob Rule.
Clifton. He was who I was going to mention next. The second African American player. I feel like that's worth a lot.
So it's the second, but it's also kind of the first. And the NBA, when the color barrier was broken, it happens kind of all at once. Because Mikan is so dominant that the Knicks owner comes in. I want to say it was Ned Irish, but I might be just mixing up my teams. I always feel like Ned Irish should be running the Celtics, but I'm pretty sure that guy's name was Walter Brown. But so the Knicks owner comes into the NBA's commissioner meeting and basically or owners meeting, basically just announces like, I'm going to sign Sweetwater Clifton because we need a guy that can help us beat Mikan. And Clifton at that time had been on the Globetrotters, had been one of the best at stopping Mikan, although they used a relatively new basketball strategy at the time called double teaming. You might have heard of it. Really helpful with stopping star players. But he makes that announcement, and then other teams draft guys, and then they all kind of play in the first game of the team for the season. So the guy who gets the first African American to play is just the guy whose team had the first scheduled game. But Clifton is really the reason why the color barrier gets broke.
Sorry, just a moment.
Okay, then I'm going to just keep talking.
Yeah.
He's also part of those Knicks runs where they make 3 finals, those teams. And I thought it was interesting that the Knicks go out and get him to stop Mikan. Mikan makes 5 finals. In the first 2, he averages 27.5 points and 32 points. Then in the 2 of the finals against the Knicks, it's 21.7 and 20.8. Now we do know that Mikan is declining at this point, but still, a near 10 points per game drop is significant. And then Mikan's 5th finals, he's 18 points per game, so just a little bit below the other 2. But field goal percentage wise, when he plays the Knicks, he's 35 and 31% from the field. And in the 54 finals, the year after the 2 Knicks ones, he's 44% from the field. So, like, there is some evidence from the statistical side that Clifton and Connie Simmons as a two-man defense were able to limit some of Mikan's effects.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just what it means, like what it means for the game and where the game is now. Just massive stuff to start in New York, to play 8 years, to make an all-star team at in 1957. I believe he's the oldest player to make an all-star team for the first time. He was 34 then.
It's either him or Johnny Green. I know you did your longevity you push and you loved Johnny Green.
Yeah. Green is actually my next guy. I had Clifton, Green, and then Josh Smith.
Perfect. Johnny Green, MSU product, although goes MSU then to, I don't know if it was the military then MSU or MSU then the military, but it doesn't come to the NBA till he's significantly older. He is an all-star in 1971 at age 37. So pretty old all-star appearance.
Is that his only one?
No, he's a four-time all-star.
Okay.
I think Clifton has the oldest first-time all-star, and Johnny Green has the oldest time. Well, until
at the
LeBron.
time, there was a record for a while. I think I'm guessing until Kareem.
Yeah,
that probably makes sense. I mean, to play that long for at that era is pretty insane. I think he holds the record for most losses in the 60s, which for a part of that's like, are you just playing the entire? It's so rare for a guy to play that entire decade.
He just gets 1,000 in games, 1,057 games. That's a lot of games for a guy in that era. From 61 to 71, 12.5 points per game, 9.1 rebounds per game. Not insane stats, but if he could have worked his way to being that guy on a championship team, we'd be talking about him 200 spots higher.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, Josh Smith is my next guy. Jay Smoove, all-time 2K player. You know how many games Josh Smith won as a rookie?
Oh, as a rookie?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I will tell you that in 2K14, I had a team that was built of Josh Smith, Andrea Bargnani, and Andre Iguodala that I took to I don't know how long I could go. I think I took that all the way till they all retired. And it was one of the most fun video game teams I ever built in franchise mode.
It sounds excellent. That sounds amazing. Well, the Hawks won 13 games and he won 11. So he was 11 and 63 as a rookie. It was one of the young, I think it was the youngest team in the league, bunch of high schoolers. But he has a really solid career. He plays 9 years in Atlanta. He gets Defensive Player of the Year votes in 6 consecutive seasons. He is all defense in 2010. Devastating going to the basket. I'd like to think that I'm not sure what happened to his basketball IQ when he signed with Detroit. I loved when they signed Brandon Jennings and Josh Smith. I was like just getting into basketball, and I heard Jalen Rose was like two lefties. Like we were gonna take the league by storm, and I really trusted Jalen Rose. He betrayed me so hard. The fact that he fell for that is honestly insane. Smith ended up just deciding he wanted to take a bunch of three-pointers, and he was just horrendous at it. And he only played 105 games in Detroit after signing a pretty long contract, but really good Atlanta years, makes the playoffs 6 times. He's playing 36 minutes a night in those playoff series. So I think this is a really good spot for him.
Yeah. So just to speak a little bit more to that Pistons tenure, he gets straight up cut. Like, one of the most wild things to happen is like this guy who they brought in on a large contract. They're just like, no, we don't want to have you here. And at that point in the season, the Pistons were 5-23 with Smith on the lineup. Without him, they go 27-27. Like, but it's kind of also just a bad fit because Smith goes and signs with Houston and ends up being a pivotal part of their comeback over or against the Clippers, who were up 3-1. His game 6, 19 points per game, or 19 points in game 6. Big 3-point shot after big 3-point shot. Like, I don't know. I don't know what was going on in Detroit that they couldn't make it work, but it happened that way. It's interesting.
How you feeling about Kyle Korver for our next guy?
Ooh. Ooh, I like it a lot.
Yeah, he's in. He's bought in.
I gotta
3-point specialist.
I gotta say, like in the abstract, some of these guys, you know, Fast Eddie, who we talked about earlier, like probably better than Korver. Mikal
I had
Bridges,
Korver at
probably.
449.
Oh, I got Josh Smith at 448. Since we've not gone in order, I can't just look at the last row. I gotta look up and scan through all of these this
Right.
year. Yeah, no, I like that a lot. That Korver is just a dead-eye sniper, truly a one of the guys that like I feel like this role doesn't really exist anymore in the NBA because now you have to be able to drive and shoot threes or defend and shoot threes. But like he was a 3-point specialist among 3-point specialists. He has 5 seasons hitting over 45% from three. He has 8 seasons over 42.5%. He has 12 seasons over 40%. He has 145 playoff games played. He has a 1,200 career games played. Dude, this man is just playing basketball for so long and shooting so well. It's kind of insane.
I really should check. I think 2010 is the highest 3-point percentage among non-three. When the line was, I think when the line was shorter, I think we saw like Steve Kerr hit like 55%.
Mm.
But Korver hitting 50. Like, he played 18 minutes tonight. He took 2 threes per game and he hit one of them. He shot 53.6% from three. The league in 3-point percentage. 4 times. In 2015, he makes the All-Star team, and it's like, yeah, whatever, and it's not the best All-Star selection. He was taking 6 threes per game and hitting 49% of them. That's
Mm-hmm.
fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. And honestly, the big thing, 39% from 3 in the playoffs. In 145 playoff games. So many times, like we see 3-point specialists get to the playoffs and their 3-point space really collapses on them. And if they can't drive, they're not as effective. Korver transcends that. He's able to get those shots off still, and he's still such a good shooter.
Yeah, member of the 60-win Hawks. That's where he gets his All-Star appearance. I like it at 449. So this is our last guy for this pod here. Just reading the top names on the board for point guards, we have Kevin Porter and DeJounte Murray. For shooting guard, we have Eddie Johnson and Doug Christie. For small forward, we have Mikal Bridges and Orlando Woolridge. Power forward, we have Stu Johnson, who we started off as our top power forward, and I have a feeling we're still not going to nominate him, and Thurl Bailey. And then at center, we have Matt Okor and Red Rocha. Any interest in any of these names?
You know, I always pronounced it Red Roca. I don't know why I figured there was a k sound in there.
It could be.
Let's see. I wonder if it says. Nah, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. The reason Stu Johnson isn't as exciting is because it's an ABA thing. And I've just kind of come down on the ABA. He makes 3 All-Star teams in 73, 74, and 75. And that's pretty impressive given like where the ABA was at. And those are playoff teams.
Yeah. I came down on him a lot. I was looking for quotes because I was like, I don't know much about him. And the more I found, the more I just didn't like it. I mean, his coach at one point says that his shooting techniques and release are near perfect. I think he works at it. He reminds me of Jack Twyman, always ready to shoot the ball. Some people thought he had arthritis because of the way his hands were always curled in his chest, like ready to shoot. But then you also have his coach after he gets traded to Memphis, who the Memphis ownership, it was a new team, the new ABA team. They're like, hey, we really want our team to like hustle and work hard on defense. And the coach is like, yeah, you guys have Stu Johnson. Man's never played defense in his life. I don't think he's going to start now.
That's too bad. That's too bad for our guy Stu.
Yeah.
I try to find like equivalents. When I think about like George McGinnis dominating the ABA, in my head, I think Kevin McHale could have done this. Like McHale's 87 season is as good as this. MVP year in the
Mhm.
ABA. And when I look at like Thurl Bailey, who is a really great six-man for Jazz teams, and through the playoffs, 85 to 90, 37 minutes a night, almost 38, at 19 points and 7 rebounds. I think that's about where an ABA All-Star on an okay ABA team would be.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the equivalent to it. And I think given the longevity difference, I kind of want to pick Bailey here.
Yeah. One of the wildest things about Bailey is that he comes off the bench in 6 playoff games in 1988. It's the whole series. He averages 23 points per game, 5.7 rebounds, 2 blocks, but he plays 40.8 minutes per game. He doesn't start. He plays 41 minutes a game. How? Why? Like, at what point don't you just start this guy? Like, like this. There's not play-by-play data. I didn't go back and watch any of the games. I'm just like, okay, did you sub him in after 2 minutes? Did you sub him in
After
after
45 seconds, as
yeah,
the ball is started in the air, he gets off the bench. He's like, I'm getting back in. I'm getting back in,
yeah.
guys.
I mean, to be fair, some teams used to do this. Is they'd start a center to try to win the jump ball, and then the first dead ball they'd sub him out. Is that what Mark Eaton was? Was he just the sacrificial jump ball guy in the playoffs?
That's interesting. I have a trivia question for you. I really should be asking more trivia questions. Do you know who has the most amount of seasons played in the NBA without starting a single game?
No.
He's coaching in the NBA currently.
Oh. Oh man, which NBA players are former coaches? Oh, Don Nelson.
Well, it's Don Nelson's not coaching currently, but Steve Kerr is.
Kerr
Sorry,
never
the
started
question was
again?
a little messed up. It's not they never started a game ever, but it's most seasons with 0 starts. And Steve Kerr has 11 years where he came off the bench the entire time. It's a fun
All right.
off the bench question.
I like
Nate,
it.
I'm heartbroken. My dynasty baseball prodigy Christian Campbell just got sent down to AAA. How am I supposed to rank in these circumstances?
I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Aaron, do you by chance have this list written out in a cohesive order?
I do.
Would you care to read it for us?
Sure. So we started at 429 because we were a little bit ahead with Connie Simmons, then James Edwards, Mark Eden, Tom Sanders, Dick Garmaker, Jimmy Walker. 435 was Cazzie Russell, Lou Williams, Derek McKee, Corey Maggette, Kristaps Porzingis. 440 was Kevin Duckworth, then Kenny Sears, Robert Ory, Derek White, Fred Scolari, Kenny Anderson, Nat Clifton, Johnny Green, Josh Smith, Kyle Korver. 450, Thurl Bailey. I like this list. Sometimes I walk away from our rankings and like there's some tweaks we made. This is good.
Yeah, this is good. All right, Aaron, where can the people find you?
Possible Chairs on TikTok, Possible Chairs on Twitter, Patreon for this list and other lists, Cameo to pay me to say propaganda, and this podcast in another 10 minutes when we record up to 475.
You can find me Nate_Hoops Temple on TikTok. Like, you can find my Patreon out there. I sell this matrix that I made that ranks every single player. You can go ahead, take a look at it if you'd like. Yeah, really, email the show, hoopstemple@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks for listening.